Hey there, it's Cynthia with the Daily Dinner Fix. Today I'm making an American classic that I think most people think of for lunch. I don't know that it gets a whole lot of love for dinner, yet it's my favorite thing to make on those days where one, it's cold outside, two, I've had a really long day and the last thing I want to do is cook. And really I just want to like wrap myself in a robe, put on some fuzzy socks and eat in front of the TV while watching Netflix. It's grilled cheese and a tomato soup. Simple in preparation, but we're going to add a couple of different elements to this to make it a little more interesting than perhaps the grilled cheese and tomato soup you may have eaten growing up. So first thing we're going to need is some chopped onion, and I have here, and this is for the soup, by the way. Probably should have led with that. We're going to make the soup first, and then while our soup simmers, we'll make the grilled cheese. So I just have an onion that I kind of halved here from pole to pole. It's like, I don't know, medium-sized, half a medium-sized onion. We're just going to give this a chop. Be careful not to slice my fingers. I want to keep those for a long time. It's funny because I never grew up eating tomato soup when I was younger. Just isn't something we really make in like Mexican households. But along the way, I just developed this affinity for tomatoes. Well, for a lot of things really, but just tomato soup is, again, one of those kind of classic American combinations that you ate as a kid. And as an adult, it's really comforting on those days where, again, it's just been rough. You're this close to ordering takeout and you're just like, I shouldn't, because we all make poor choices, I think, when we order out. So hopefully this is a better choice than maybe eating an entire pizza. And it's really, really quick and easy to make. So we chop our onion. I'm going to get our, I have a Dutch oven back here. And then I'm going to start heating up just over like a medium low heat while I mince our garlic. I love the taste of garlic. I hate mincing it. It's a little tedious, and yet I won't bring myself to buy a garlic press. I don't know why. I have this thing against keeping tools in the kitchen that only serve one function. And until I can find another function for a garlic press, I'm chopping garlic by hand. I have limited space, so gotta make do with what I've got. All right, so that's pretty well minced. This is also going to get pureed after it's cooked for a while. So we have here our soup pot's coming to a heat. We're going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil, and yeah, you can see that's hot. It's already starting to shimmer a little bit. We're going to add our onions and our garlic. Everybody's invited to this party. To that, we're going to add a small bay leaf. And then a pinch of red pepper flake, or I guess in this case, a shake of red pepper flake. Yeah, it's a pretty generous pinch. I like a little bit of heat. And we're just gonna give that, do you want me to give you my back? I'm not gonna give you my back. We're gonna give this a stir, and we're gonna cook this for about 3 to 5 minutes until the onions have softened and they're translucent. All right, and actually while that's cooking, you can see I have some chives here on my cutting board. The chives aren't going to go into the soup. They're actually going to go into our grilled cheese, but since I kind of have some time, some idle time, I'm going to go ahead and give these bad boys a chop. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and put this in a little, oh no, you know what, I'm gonna put it in this bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and add our next ingredient, which is a 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes. Let's give this a stir. Okay, and what we're gonna do to those tomatoes is we're gonna give them a good mash with a potato masher. And that's just to break up the big chunks of tomatoes. Sorry, I'm trying to get like every last bit of chive. It's okay if there's a little little garlic that makes its way in there. It's just gonna be some more flavor. All right, so we're just gonna give these kind of like a coarse, whoa, making a mess. We're gonna give this a coarse mash until these are broken down into like 2-inch pieces. All right, so we mashed our tomatoes. I almost said potatoes. To that, we're gonna add some brown sugar. You might be wondering, brown sugar, tomato soup, why? Well, the brown sugar is actually gonna help balance the acidity of the tomatoes. So without it, the soup isn't gonna taste quite right. So you wanna make sure that you do not leave that ingredient out. And then we're also gonna take, this is just 2 slices of white bread. I've removed the crust and then cut it into like, I don't know, inch kind of chunks. We're gonna throw that in as well. Give this a stir. And then you're gonna let this cook for about 3 to 5 minutes until the bread is completely saturated and soaked with those tomatoes. So I'm gonna set a timer here for, let's check after 3 minutes and see where we're at with that. In the meantime, let's turn our attention to our cheese. We're gonna go a little more grown up for this grilled cheese. So this is a good time to break out like a really good quality cheddar, another type of melting cheese that you may like, a manchego, maybe a habanero jack or a pepper jack, a gruyere. Actually, gruyere is really good for this. So whatever you like that melts really well, this is a great time to use that. I'm going to be using a white cheddar. It's an aged white cheddar. If you're buying cheddar, you want to make sure you're getting something that isn't aged over a year. While it is delicious, it doesn't melt as well in grilled cheese as something that's a little younger. So don't go too old. And this is, I think, a great opportunity for you to maybe experiment with different types of melty cheeses. The one of the grocery stores close to where I live actually has a cheese shop in the store. Fancy, I know. And I kind of like just going there and poking around and talking to the people that work in the little cheese shop and asking them like, hey, what's good? I need a melty cheese. What do you recommend? And they actually often have kind of like small wedges of different types of cheese that you can purchase to try, so you're not having to buy a whole block and committing to something you may or may not like. This I know I like, so I got a whole block. Anyway, white cheddar, and then I almost forgot about this other delicious little bit of cheese, and this is a Point Reyes Toma. So Point Reyes is a dairy up in Marin County in Northern California. They're probably most famous, at least I think they're most famous for their blue cheese. They have an original blue and a bay blue, both of which are delicious. Some years ago, I actually went up to Point Reyes and some other dairies in Marin County. There's actually a bunch of dairies in Marin County. And we pretty much just my husband and I spent the weekend eating cheese. A lot of people go up to that part of the state to go to Napa, to go drink wine. And we are like, nah, we're going to go to Marin County, which is just next door to Napa. We're not far from Napa anyway. And we're going to eat cheese. And that's what we did. And we tried that Toma, and all these years later I still remember how delicious it was. And when I went to the cheese store and I saw that they were actually no, I got this at Sprouts. Oh, there's our timer. I got this at Sprouts and I was surprised because I'd never seen them sell the Toma there. So I was like, I knew I was gonna make this, and I thought, you know what, I'm getting this. All right, how's this doing? This probably needs like another minute or so. It's almost soaked it all up. In the meantime, I'm going to keep shredding our cheeses. Let me take this and dump it into the bowl with the chives. All right. All right. That's pretty good. So let's dump that in there. And this is going to be enough for like 2 sandwiches, give or take. All right, our soup's done actually, so I'm going to turn that off back there. Let me move this. All right, and what I'm going to do now is I have here a cup of low sodium chicken broth. we're gonna add, actually, before I do that, sorry, I forget. So the way I've written the recipe for you guys, at this stage, you would take this tomato bread stuff, mass, and throw it in a blender along with a cup of low sodium chicken broth and a tablespoon of olive oil. I've written the recipe in that way because I recognize that most people probably don't have a hand blender or an immersion blender at home. I like making soup a lot. This is a tool that I invested in, and it wasn't a major investment. They're not very expensive tools. But anyway, I wrote the recipe again. So if you're following the directions, it'll say throw this in a blender. So in case you're wondering why the heck is she using that tool, this is why. So again, cup of low sodium chicken broth. We're gonna add a tablespoon of olive oil. And actually what I wanna do before I start blending, and maybe before I added that chicken broth, I should have done this because it would have been easier. There it is. That wasn't that hard at all. I want to fish that bay leaf out. You don't want to eat that. There's like this old wives' tale that bay leaves are poisonous. From what I've read, that's actually not true. They're just really difficult to digest. So we're just gonna remove that. Let's blend this bad boy. Actually, why am I struggling, right? I just like doing things the hard way sometimes. All right. So it's gonna get loud for a sec, bear with me. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I'll admit if you do this in a blender, it's probably a little faster than using the hand blender, but then I have to wash the blender. And I just hate washing dishes. So this is much easier to clean. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna give this a taste. This is definitely gonna need some salt because I don't know if you realize this, we haven't seasoned this at all. So I'm gonna give this a taste just to get a gauge for how much salt this is gonna need. Yeah, that's gonna need like a generous, let's do like a teaspoon and a half. Give this a stir. The other thing about doing this in a hand blender is the soup is gonna be, I guess you could say a little more rustic, not as like smooth as it might be in a blender, and that's perfectly fine. If you want something that's completely smooth, then you know, do it in the blender. That's good. Yes, I'm double dipping, but I'm also going to be eating the soup, so I'm allowed. I guess it's good, right? I keep eating it. All right, so we're going to give this a cover, and that's done. Yeah, that's it. Soup's done. Time to make some grilled cheese. All right, so I've got our ingredients assembled for our grilled cheese. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to heat a skillet. Now you could use, I'm using a non-stick skillet. You could use cast iron. I actually have a large cast iron griddle that I like using for this when I'm making multiple sandwiches. Right now I'm just going to be making one for this demonstration. You can use whatever you like here, as long as it doesn't stick. So I have here some rustic white bread. You want to use a white bread that you like. If you like just, you know, like the Wonder Bread, that's fine. Again, we're kind of trying to elevate this a little, so I'm using this artisanal bread that I found. We're gonna take a little bit of mayonnaise. So you're probably accustomed to melting butter in a skillet and then using that to toast your bread. This is actually a secret. Well, maybe not so secret, but this is a trick that you can use to get a nice golden crust on your bread. So we've got our mayonnaise slice of bread. How hot is that? I can still touch it. That's hot though. All right, so we're gonna put that mayonnaise side down. And you do wanna make sure your skillet is over low heat. That's how you get a nice golden crust without burning your bread. Now remember our cheese mixture from earlier? We're gonna go ahead and just kind of give this a toss, kind of toss the chives in there with both of the cheeses. And you don't have to use two different types of cheeses. If you just wanna use, you know, a cheddar or a gruyere or whatever you have on hand, or again, whatever you like, use that. I wanted to do a blend for this today, so that's what I'm doing. And then we're just gonna pile this on. It's okay if you get like these little bits of cheese that kind of fall off the side. They're gonna turn golden and delicious. So we're gonna do the same thing with our other slice of bread. Just spread it with some mayo, and we're probably using about a half tablespoon of mayonnaise per bread slice, so you're not like slathering this on thick. It really is just a thin coat to allow the bread to become golden. All right, and we're just gonna put this down face up. And we're just gonna leave that alone. It's gonna take probably about 3 or so minutes. So I'm gonna set a timer before we go to flip this. You do wanna though just kind of keep checking on it periodically to make sure that the bread isn't burning too quickly, or not. We don't want it to burn at all. We wanna make sure it's not toasting too quickly. The key is to have the bread become fully toasted at the same time that the cheese melts. Why am I acting like you've never made a grilled cheese before? Sure, you've made one before. But anyway, make sure you keep an eye on that, and we'll give it a flip in a couple minutes. All right, so I'm taking a peek here, and this actually looks about ready to flip. I'm gonna give this, I kind of like to give this a press. I like to think that it kind of helps the bread adhere to the cheese and like not have the cheese like fall apart or the bread fall off as you try and flip, but here we go. There we go. See how golden brown and delicious that is? That's gonna be good. And we didn't have any cheese casualties, yay. Yeah, like if you try to turn this too soon before the cheese has really started melting, you're gonna end up with the cheese kind of just falling out all over the place. But you want the cheese in the sandwich, right? So that was about 2.5 minutes. So I'm gonna set another timer for another 2.5 minutes. All right, so it's been about 2 minutes. My timer has not gone off yet, but my spidey senses tell me that this is ready to flip, and it's delicious and golden brown and ooey gooey, and this is ready to devour. One thing that I didn't mention earlier, but as you're checking this, you also want to make sure that you're churning the sandwich kind of periodically to ensure that it cooks evenly. Or browns evenly, but as you can see, that's pretty even there, and it looks amazing. So, to finish off our humble dinner of grilled cheese and tomato soup, I'm going to take our sandwich, I'm going to place it on our cutting board here. Let's put that aside. And I'm going to take a serrated knife. And I guess, well, you could cut this in half, you can cut this into thirds. Sometimes I like cutting these in like little fingers for easy dunking. Today I'm just going to cut it in half. And to plate, we're going to take some of our soup. Got a ladle here. My hands are all buttery, so I'm trying not to get the bowl dirty, but I don't think there's any avoiding it. All right, so we've got our yummy soup. We've got our grilled cheese, and I love dunking. Let's give this a taste. I'm very pleased with myself right now. It's like you've got like the tanginess from the tomato, then you've got the like buttery, cheesy goodness from the sandwich, and the like smooth texture and the crunchy bread. It's really a pairing made in heaven. Hope you make this at home. It's absolutely delicious. I'm gonna eat. Enjoy.